GINJO is there, and he's thinking to himself that he doesn't think he ever asked how Giriko died. That is so sad. It's like they've just been hanging out this whole time, and finally he's like, I don't think I ever asked how he died. Welcome back to Bleach Boys. We're doing Can't Fear Your Word Volume 2 for the first time ever. We're first time for us too. Pythes has read it already. He's the lore master here. But look at this thing. It is fucking thick.
Intimidating.
So we're going to do all the way through chapter 9. It's got a nice little cliffhanger and ends on it. It sets up a lot of stuff. And then come next episode, we will go through the rest of the book. It is a thick boy here. This is probably the biggest of all three. So if you're following along, read up to chapter 9 and then we'll go from there. There is an interlude as well. And then we'll move on. So lots of good shit. What did you think of the book?
Dude, I like it. I mean, not just because it's very heavily focusing on one of my favorite characters.
Yep, that is true.
You know,
that is true.
But I just, it's a little bit of a payoff from last one. So we got a lot of setup, and it's still very much what you said, where you like the ends of like series episodes where they're wrapping up. It still feels that way, but at the same time, also brand new to me. So I'm kind of giddy about it.
This one felt like from the little under half of the book that we read, it was all one giant fight. I was like, geez, I'm almost like hopping back and forth a million times over and over again.
I told you.
Dude, you were so right. I don't know. I'm just enjoying it all the way through right now.
It's just like I could surmise this book where it's like you're watching a fight, this character appears, cut back. So like whatever happened to that character? And then it's like two other people talking about that constantly. I'm like, dude, this is crazy.
You know what it reminds me of a little bit? Brotherhood. How like the whole last chunk of it, the last like 10 episodes is all one day.
Yeah, it was wild. It was just nonstop bullshit. So in a loving way, of course.
Of course.
I'm going to say something controversial. I think the first half of this book is not very good.
Whoa.
Okay.
Not because it's bad, but just because I like the back half so much, I kind of don't care about what happens before then.
Damn, okay. But when you read it the first time, did you feel this way as well?
I fucking loved it. But now that I know what's coming, I'm like, fuck this chapter. Let's get to the next one. Let's get to the next one. It's so good.
Interesting. Well, let's hop into it then with the interlude. This should be really short. Interlude's not very long, of course, it's the interlude, but it's more stuff about basically asking what the Soul King is, which is interesting because they actually use Soul King and not Reo like the last one was using. And they state that no one really knows what the Soul King is. Not even the Soul Reapers who call themselves Death Gods. We see a young boy asking who is a member of the royal family asking the same question, basically, like, who is this Soul King? And he's informed that it's the linchpin that holds the three worlds together, and without him the worlds would all crumble. He naturally asks the next question anybody would ask is, well, what it was like before the Soul King was even a thing, to which he was very quickly hushed, told not to ask such a question, and it didn't exist prior to the Soul King. We cut forward now. We see that young boy is that bitch Tokinada, as he is in the Tsunayashiro library and has just finished cracking a cipher. And the cipher translates to, we record the crimes of our ancestors here. Tokinada smiles and laughs, and he destroys the stone. And it states that this is perfect as it now gives him meaning to his life. And he says, had it not been for this, he would probably have followed the noble path, living his life for hubris and doing the classic noble evil things. But now he has a goal to satisfy his desires to the maximum extent possible, and a playground to set his evil free. And his goal is just to be basically as evil as a bitch as possible. And he's like, yeah, this is great. 10 out of 10.
Dude, that's I literally shortened it for the intro to saying, intro confirms that bitch Tokinada is a legit bitch.
Yep.
So I also wrote that down, and for anyone keeping count, we were up to fuck that bitch Tokinada number 5. Continuing on from last week.
This interlude is basically him going to the library. Is like, this is great because now I can be a dickhead for no reason. This is great,
dude. Seriously, I was like, God damn, you're such a dick.
Like, he was gonna be a dick anyway, but now he's like, oh great, validation. That's all I needed.
Yep. And then we cut to the Karakura town after this, and we see Urahara and Shuhei. They're in deep negotiation for an electric guitar.
I thought that was hilarious.
A guitar that Urahara states is from the legendary Galmuna Ecstasy, which I googled is not anybody. Yeah. It's not. It doesn't exist.
I also googled that.
Same.
Yeah. Urahara is telling Shuhei how this is a genuine one-of-one replica of the original, and so in some ways it's even better because each person that has made a replica of this guitar has made an improvement to the original and put their soul into each iteration. He says also it can be used as a sheath for Zanpakuto, and he's willing to sell it for a low price of 3 months of his salary.
Jesus.
And Shuhei is like, And Deep thought maybe, that sounds pretty good with his sheath for the thing. And finally he goes, will you also issue me a loan if I do it? And he's like, yeah, all right. And then we see Ururu and Genta kind of watching through the crack in the door. And they comment, man, that guy's getting ripped off again. And he's like, yeah, he's such a good customer.
I love how Ururu says that.
That's the interlude right there. It's a setup of both of our key players here of Shuhei, Hisagi, and then Tokinada.
In my notes, all I have is, God damn, Urahara knows a sucker when he sees one.
Yep. And Shuhei is a fucking sucker.
Oh, he definitely is.
My one note I wrote for that was just get grifted, loser.
So good. The interludes so far have been pretty interesting. I will say, having watched Thousand Year Blood War and it still being fresh, I did kind of roll my eyes a little bit, but I understand why it was in the novel when they kicked off like, what is the Soul King? I'm like, how many times are we gonna have the discussion? But it gets there. It makes sense. It sets off a little bit of Tokinada backstory, where it shows that he was kind of always like interested in this answer, and everybody was like, yeah, fuck off, loser.
No, not fuck off. Shut up. Don't ask questions.
Yep. True. So it was interesting. Two different sides, and also I like that you see Tokinada like kind of happy he could be evil, and Shuhei is trying to buy a guitar. It's like that's the two different worlds that we're living in here.
The flip of a coin.
And if you were wondering last volume why they were like, hey Shuhei, can't you at least afford to eat out at these fancy restaurants? You have an assistant captain. He's like, fucking all my money goes to Kisuke.
He knows it. He's just like, well, I'm gonna be broke for the next 3 months.
Too busy getting scammed.
Don't forget, he has to pay for upkeep on his motorcycle and gas and batteries.
Oh, true.
For the amp.
Oh, that's right.
For his other electric guitar.
He's never getting out of debt. It's the American dream.
Our boy might be American. Holy shit.
Shuhei American confirmed.
All right. We ready for chapter 6?
Yeah. Let's just jump into
now,
it.
the chapters, this is the first chapter of volume 2, but it is chapter 6 because the last volume ended on 5. All right. So we kick off with Shuhei. He's still in Karakura Town, and he is reading an introduction that he has written for Urahara about him and Karakura Town, describing the Urahara Shoten, the Urahara shop, as a hidden gem only a few candy collectors know. And to those who know about hollows and spirits, the place serves as a safe haven to run to in case of trouble. He mentions that Karakura Town is the same place where Ishin Shiba met a human woman who would give birth to the man who changed the Soul Society. And Urahara immediately calls him out on the fact that he is, one, surprised he read that all to him with a straight face, because really gassed up Urahara shop, gassed up Karakura Town. And Urahara also mentions that it's interesting that you called it a human woman when she is clearly a Quincy. And Hisagi at this point, which I did like this a lot, he, as a journalist, he obviously wants to protect Ichigo and all that stuff as well. And he thinks to himself that even though the war is over, a lot of the noble houses and people in the Soul Society, being related to a Quincy is still a bit touchy. So even though he's sure Ichigo wouldn't mind having that out there, he doesn't want to put that out there and basically like slander this hero who saved everybody as a Quincy himself.
I thought that was super cool. Very much a journalistic thing to do.
And he even mentions, even though there are Quincy supporters like the Ishin family, not the Ishin, the Uryu family.
Ishida.
There you go. Thank you. The Ishida family. And he's like, still too touchy. Still don't want to put that out there. I'm like, interesting.
Do not poke the bear.
It shows we're getting a lot into the political side of Soul Society, these whole books. And they're staying with it, and it's really interesting. Urahara then hands Hisagi a bunch of papers saying, don't worry, I have the answers to everything you want to know right here. And it turns out to just be a recipe for one of their most famous candies, the hollow. And it's just like requires a bajillion pounds of sugar and half fucking salt or something like that. And Hisagi is just like, yeah, this is not it, but I'm going to keep it just in case, because I might write an article on this later. And Hisagi is continuing to ask questions, trying to get information out of Urahara, but he's a wily motherfucker and he's not answering anything. Eventually, Hisagi notes that had it not been for the pill that Urahara made during the war, and it not been for them being able to get up to the Soul Palace, which he also contributed to, the war could have been lost had not been for him. And Urahara replies that he honestly should be the one thanking them for giving him the chance to use one of his preventative measures, and then becomes serious for a moment and says that aside from that, he's not going to comment on anything. He's like, only the facts that you just listed right there, that's the only thing I want to say. And Hisagi gets serious and tries to get him to answer again, but Urahara just deflects it towards Genta, who's still watching through the cracks in the door, and saying, don't be too serious. Genta might cry and wet the bed again.
I thought that was hilarious.
And Genta gets so upset and jumps through yelling and immediately tries to attack Urahara, who is stopped midair by Tessai, who we've not seen in a long time, and pinned to the ground while Ururu uses her hair to begin tickling his feet.
I love how Tessai is described as a brawny man the whole time.
So Urahara tells Ururu, like, hey, you know what? Make sure we stock up on 500 kg of bouncy balls. And Tessai just carries Genta away while Ururu keeps tickling him. And Hisagi comments on Genta and Ururu, saying that they're Reiraku, which is by the way, the spirit ribbons that we don't talk about fucking
I
ever.
have that
except
right
for the
here. I was
beginning.
like, thank God someone mentioned that.
He
again.
says they both have unique ones. They actually bring up spirit ribbons a lot here. And Urahara turns to Sagi and he's like, so like, what do you think they are then? Like what? Like if they're so unique, you know? And he says that he thinks they might be like temporary souls, but not really, because they do like act on orders, but they don't grow or anything like that. And then he thinks of a lion-shaped plushie that often appears in Soul Society.
Oh, I wonder who that could be.
Yeah, and he says that potentially a mod soul. And Urahara's like, oh, okay, you're sharper than you seem, but that doesn't mean you're right. It's like the only other thing I think of would be something like Nemu. And
R.I.P. my girl.
Yeah, Urahara immediately corrects him and is like, "Well, don't put that out there into the ether, because if you say that, Miri will want to use them for experiments, okay?" And he's like, "Their insides are actually quite different from Nemu, and Miri probably knows that, and is so happy imagining my bitter face from him surpassing me." And then he goes, "But I've never been bitter in front of Miri." It's like, you know, like, and that's the end of that little conversation there, which. Super good. Most of this book, actually, I think always until all these chapters, it's Hisagi and Urahara talking. What I was mentioning in the beginning of the book, where it's like, yeah, they constantly introduce a character and hop over. It's Hisagi and Urahara every time. It's like, oh, so what about that guy? And it's like, oh, the guy that just showed up. What about this girl? Oh, yeah. It's like, here you go. Like, thank you. Love that.
I just love how Urahara has preventative measures for so many things.
I think they said in that thing, I summarized it, but that he had like 3,000 preventative measures or something ready to go. And he's like, in reality, he's probably telling the truth, where he was happy he got to use one of them.
Just one.
Yep.
Fucking Batman over here.
Yeah.
I just want to say that you skipped a part where Keisuke's like, hey, could you describe me as shady instead of
I like that.
And could
you
you
if there's
describe
any
my
favorite
business?
lines that I skip, tell me, because I tried to sum it up as much as possible.
I also had a question answered from I think it was a Bleach Boys podcast from a while ago, where I was like, what are Jinta and Ururu? And literally explained in here.
Well, we don't know. Not explained.
Well, not fully explained,
Not
but
explained.
we get
similar to Nemu.
alluded to
a little
And
bit.
I remember Pythes going, hit me with the line, Pythes.
Hey, maybe we'll find out and can't figure your own world.
Yep.
Now, I have a legit question. I guess
Okay.
a legit follow-up question. Is it answered in these novels what they are?
They basically already did. They're kind of mod souls that he made that are like Nemu, but not really.
Okay, that's what I figured.
That's
okay,
as close as you're going to get.
Okay,
So
interesting.
you did find out.
Okay, all right.
Cool.
So next we move to the Soul Society R&D department, speak of the devil, and we have the classic anime moment where Mary feels like something is bothering him, and he's like, it must be the ramblings of a jealous scientist somewhere. And Akon is talking to Mary and sees Mary's looking at a screen of high def satellite images that is, he says, is more precise than anything the real world has. And Akon comments on how precise it is and asks why would he go through all the trouble of building his own if he could just upgrade the visual department system. Here we learn about the visual department. I didn't know it was a separate thing. And how they run hand in hand with the R&D department and are responsible for the built-in images that we've seen many times in the anime where they're watching stuff. And one of the turning points that established that department as legit and basically running hand in hand was when Hyosu actually spotted Rukia in the real world as one of her Gigais, and that's what got her caught. Mayuri comments that he is going to be phasing the visual department out of the R&D department. And Akon immediately says if that had anything to do with the noble houses interfering with the surveillance, which is what happened last novel when they snowed the spiritual suppression, they told them, nah, don't look at that. Don't look at that. And says, I'm sure the visual department is having a bad time with the four noble houses as well. Mary's like, have you not noticed? They're in on it. The decorative aristocrats take turns running the visual department, but it was established and is managed by the four noble houses. Mary says the Tsunayashiro clans are the ones managing the past themselves. And before the creation of the Underground Assembly Hall's Great Archive, Central 46's Great Archive, the Tsunayashiros were the centuries recording all history. Mary looks to the screen, where we're now looking at the Rukon guy, and says, I found my targets. I'm going out to the experiment myself. And Akon asks one final question as he's on his way out, and asks, why are we separating from the visual department? Mary says, the man who has the slacker job of managing the visual department killed all the leaders of the Tsunayashiro family and became the head of that family. I've just determined that man will hinder my research. Which, Tokinada, if we can't spell it out.
That bitch.
He's been chilling, relaxing, having a cush job this whole time, and he officially murdered everybody, made his way to the top.
He was like a mall cop, just
Mary's
looking
like,
at
fuck
everything.
that guy. I'm no way.
So if you ever wonder, how does Tokinada know this or that? It's because that's his job.
All he does is just sit there and watch everybody. What a pervert.
Yeah. It's true, though. And it's like, you do see later, he's got his own little system set up later
Dude,
in the book.
it's insane.
Yeah.
He's the fucking CIA.
Planning coups and shit. He is the CIA. So now we head over to the Rukongai where we were just watching from the satellite. And of course, we're greeted by none other than Giriko, Ginjo, and Tsukishima. And they are just vibing on their way back to Kukaku's when Ginjo can sense that they're being watched, just like the feeling of his Soul Reaper badge back in the day. And then an arrow of lightning heads towards them as Ginjo sidesteps it. And they call out to the attacker, but they're unable to see exactly where they are. And just then, almost as, quote, it oozed out of the shadows, a voice came calling out behind them. Ginjo turned to see a woman wearing a white Western outfit, and with signs of experimentations all over her, she shouts, "You should all just hurry up and die." And then a flash of lightning comes down from the sky towards Ginjo and crew. Very mysterious who that
I
character
don't know
is
who it
be.
was. They do describe
Yep.
that the Western outfit may have been shortened and
Yep.
you know, exposing some skin.
Don't know who this character
I don't know
could
who that
possibly
is.
be, who might have used lightning powers back in the day. I mean, I don't know.
I was kind of excited.
As soon as I got to this chapter, I just wrote Jose is pogging right now.
Yeah.
I wrote side bay has entered.
Well, no, main bay is a child now. So
Yeah.
Well,
that's true.
I
Main Bay.
don't
Listen,
approve of that.
Jose, main bay is allowed up until a certain point in Thousand Year Blood War, and then you need to pivot.
And then afterwards, I leave her.
Like, if the Hell Arc ever continues, not your main bay anymore, Jose. Oh, but the Hell Arc, she could be old by then. Yeah? How many years
I
have
feel
passed? by the Hell?
no, I think she'd be about Kazui's age, right?
All right, sorry, Jose. Sorry,
She-
dog.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
she out.
She was like a kid in the last chapter.
Once she blows up, I'm like, all right, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
I
there
go
you
to next bay.
It's like you were only main bay for OG Nemu. This remake Nemu, not the same.
Not the same.
Mhm.
Not the
Is
same
this
vibes.
even
but
going to be
but
like
you know,
the same personality?
in my top threes, you know,
True.
well,
True, that is true.
It's just going to be Namu.
I'm just gonna say it's my child. I'm a single dad now, and what's her name?
So you've imprinted on the new one.
No,
God
we don't-
no, that's even worse. Ew.
So you basically are Jacob from Twilight.
Have you seen the thing? Robert Pattinson's wife is legit pregnant, and he put, "Hey, Taylor Lautner, stay away from my my wife."
No, I haven't. That's great though.
You do not bring up Twilight on this fucking podcast.
All right. Well,
Anyways,
over to Karakura Town. We're in the Urahara shop again, of course. And Hisagi is just continuing to ask Urahara questions, trying to figure out what the deets are. And he just eventually, the questions, he is trying to figure out what interviewer style works best on someone like Urahara. And he eventually decides to just be honest. And he's like, listen, going forward, half of the question I ask will be for the article. The other half are just for my personal interest. And Hisagi says he will have to publish a special article before this one even comes out because he's trying to do two. One's on the Tsunayashiro family and the new head. And then the one that he's really working on is like the true story of the war. And Urahara asks straight up if the special article will be about the Tsunayashiro's new head. Hisagi replies, "Oh, then you know?" And says that I'm really trying to figure out what this Soul Reaper kid I saw the other day is. And not kid like Hitsugaya, but kid. And Urahara becomes serious after hearing this, and Hisagi thinks how he can sense the intent for facts and data coming off of Urahara, and recants basically everything that he's seen so far to Urahara. Everything we've learned in Volume 1, he tells to Urahara. Urahara comments on Sanosuke, saying that he was always incredible with his Kido, and even with respect from Unohana in that fashion. But he was only good with the patients that were directly in front of him. Outside of that, he was, quote, incredibly mean. Like, so mean-spirited that him and Unohana got into it multiple times.
God
over it.
damn, he was a dick.
And he even mentions that because it went so far one way, it's most likely why a kind-hearted one got chosen to be a replacement.
They had to put my girl in.
Yeah, it's like Sanosuke blazed the path, and they're like, please.
Just give us someone who's nice.
Because he was there 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was her lieutenant during the turn back to Pendulum arc.
Oh, so
You can-
Isane is relatively fresh as a lieutenant, right?
Relatively, there is a shot on like the Bleach wiki where like, yeah, you can just vaguely see him in part of the anime.
Oh, that's cool.
That is very cool. After that, Hisagi continues to ask about this kid and how this kid had a mixture of Quincy, Soul Reaper, Hollow, and human, and he came out of a Garganta. Urahara murmurs, he's like, oh, I see, so that's like how far the Tsunayashiro family is willing to go, but Hollow isn't supposed to be a requirement. And then Urahara basically snaps back out of it and asks Hisagi, are you sure this is the first time that you felt something like this? There isn't someone else with all of those traits? And then Hisagi thinks, he's like, oh, Ichigo. Ichigo's like the same thing.
Light goes off in his head.
And Urahara says, actually, there is one other person who's very similar, someone with the essence of a Hollow, the power of a Soul Reaper, and another power all at once. And we learn that it is GINJO. And that is the end of chapter 6. So a lot of other banter and stuff that I cut out of there. We get way more of that banter to come up. There's some stuff that relates to Yoruichi actually coming up as well. But so far, so good. Off to a good start. Lots of setup still for the Tsunayashiro family. Lots of setup for the stuff we learned in Volume 1. Or I guess further setup off of that stuff. So interesting. Really interesting.
I liked it though. It was like a lot of just info and lore dump, which was, it's always fantastic in Bleach because there's just stuff that we didn't even know about before.
And like right before Candice starts to attack, a mysterious woman starts to attack.
Please, thank you.
Like Giriko, the guy with the eye patch, is just spouting a bunch of useless nonsense, and I was like, "Yo, he just like me for real, for real."
Pythes is confirmed. Giriko.
Yeah. There's a part later on which I felt I'll spoil it because I think we're about to come up on it.
Yeah.
But GINJO is there and he's thinking to himself. I definitely wrote this down that he doesn't think he ever asked how Giriko died.
Yeah, I do remember that. He's
like, that is so sad. It's like they've just been hanging out this whole time, and finally he's like, I don't think I ever asked how he died.
I did write that down too, and I was
so funny.
I bet he has the most horrific Kenpachi PTSD.
Yeah.
Just wait.
Yeah, he's like, fuck that shit.
You guys haven't seen shit yet. you haven't.
All right.
You haven't gotten to the good part of the book yet.
We're getting there. I'm telling you, if you are so interested in seeing this mystery fight that's about to happen to the Fullbringers, man, you're in for a treat because that's the rest of the book.
God damn it!
That's the rest of the half
it was
that
be super simple,
covering.
and then holy shit, it's just like boom.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, anything I missed on chapter 6 that you guys want to touch on before we move on?
All I wrote down was getting actual information from Urahara is like getting blood from a stone.
Yep.
He is cagey as fuck.
And they talk about how like when Hisagi's trying to ask him questions, and like there's multiple times where it's like Urahara responds knowing what Hisagi's strategy is, and like he can tell that something bothered Hisagi, and he comments on it. Yeah. And every time Hisagi's like, fuck this guy, like I cannot get anything out of him.
I also wrote down that visually, like in my head as I was reading it, it's like I was watching the anime because that's just how my brain works. Mm-hmm. And anytime they talked about him closing the fan, opening the fan, pressing it to his lips, away, and doing the little fanning thing that he does, I was picturing it perfectly in my head.
I thought one of the parts where I could visualize the best, and I thought they nailed all the characters, was with Genta jumping
when
in,
he was being choked and tickled
I could
with
totally
the hair.
see that in my mind. I was like, yeah, that's great.
They
like,
created
that's totally
backstory for being like for her tickling him.
Yeah,
I was like, what the hell?
Yep, great, really good stuff. I could totally, the moment I was reading that, like I could totally see that in the anime.
Just it'd be done in the style of the anime where it's all kind of like, it's not a traditional Kubo, but then it's drawn all funny.
Yeah.
And Cheesecake has his like dumb troll face hidden behind the fan.
Yep.
It's fucking this guy.
It's so good.
And then I didn't put a number on it, but I just wrote that bitch Tokinada's head of the visual department. Fuck my life.
Okay, chapter 7. We're going straight back to the Rakan, and if you didn't hear already, then we find out the woman is none other than Candice Catnip.
Yay.
Wow. And she is referred to as a registered bloodhound of the 12th division now. Hate to see that shit.
It's better than Bambi being a backpack.
Yeah.
True.
Holy fuck. Poor Bambi.
Yeah.
And it's mentioned here that multiple other Stern Ritters were captured and being used as guinea pigs, and now a zombified version said to be being used by Mary, and his carrot on a stick method.
I love that phrasing.
And he says that in this case, Candice has been fed a poisonous carrot. And we go back in time here several days ago to the R&D department, and we see Candice and Mary when they're having their interaction here, and they're going back and forth over Candice cooperating with him. And she states that he won't go down without a fight, and if he tries anything, she'll take down them and Ichigo at the same time. And Mary is like, well, like that guy left a long time ago. So, and Mary's like, honestly, if Ichigo saw the way you were here, he's so naive that he would complain until you were free. So, and Candice is like, fuck it, I'm still not gonna help. And this is where we see Mary begin to kind of bait her with these little poisonous carrots, air quotes. And he mentions that there's a zombie and a glutton girl that have been sneaking around Hueco Mundo, and if she doesn't cooperate, he'll just have to get replacements. And Candice immediately regains a little bit of hope, and Mayuri says to think they fought me and didn't expect that I put trackers on both of them. Candice asks about Bambi, and Mayuri says yes, the bomb girl is still alive, although zombified, of course. And Candice asks if he already has test subjects, why hasn't he just killed the other Stern Raiders already? Why hasn't he just taken them out? Mayuri says that they formed a pact with the head captain for a unified front against Yuha Baha, and Candice can't believe that they would betray Yuha because she was like gone. The moment the Oswalian happened, she was gone.
Oh yeah, she was knocked out.
She does recall the feeling of Yuha attempting to steal her powers and thinks of Lil Toto, and immediately thinks, yeah, Lil Toto would probably do that. Like that makes a lot of sense. And Mayuri says, if you cooperate in this upcoming battle, I wouldn't be opposed to returning those who've completed their experiments to your fellow Quincy's. Which, as we know of Mayuri, is never gonna fucking happen. Not a chance in hell. And we cut to present day, where it is explained that not even Candice believed the words that was coming out of his mouth, and she was hoping to use this as a chance to find Minnie, who had also been captured, and somehow make contact with Lil Toto and Giselle, so they can all get out of there. It's mentioned that seeing GINJO block her first electric arrow brought back memories of Ichigo, and she immediately gets fucking upset and made her so mad that she immediately used her electrocution on the Fullbringers, which they state her powers have been reduced since the Oswalin, or the Ashwalin, but is still stronger than that of like a standard lightning, which is still pretty fucking good.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm. And it's mentioned here, which I thought was interesting, I don't know if they'll expand on later, that Lil Toto knew of Fullbringers. Like, she was one of the only people, and she says that she actually brought them up previously, and she's like, Lil Toto probably know more about these guys. How? Who does she know?
She's just smart. That fucking smart, dude.
Yeah, she, honestly, Lil Toto is referred to multiple times, and it just goes to show she is like the fucking smartest person. Mm-hmm. They're constantly like, yeah, most people are like unrouting, whatever, but they knew Lil Toto had their back. It was like, damn, like, all right, that's cool.
These books do so much to elevate her as like one of the goats. Somehow, she was in like 4 chapters of the Blood War, maybe 5, and they're like, yeah, no, we're gonna give this one all the screen time.
Yeah, they're like, and she's just the best person, and she's so cool.
She's the smartest.
Like, yeah, it's like, all right, cool, chill. So we see Mayuri, who is watching them from afar, and says that Candice must have understood the mission, as he told her to capture the bodies, and she's trying to incinerate them to dust. And just then a voice speaks out behind Mayuri, saying that he told her that girl is too brash for this. And Mayuri immediately presses the button, shocking multiple people who we see are, of course, Charlotte, Luppi, Dordoni, and Sarucci, all back again. And Dordoni asks, what about the promise for them to meet the Nino? And Mayuri goes, well, one of the guys down there is a deputy Soul Reaper, just like Ichigo. In fact, Ichigo struck him down with his own blade. And Dordoni says, really? So has he removed his naivety? And he goes, if so, I cannot call him Nino anymore. And Mayuri continues and says that one of them is also the man who struck down Uryu Yoshida. And Sarucci says there's no way that 4 eyes would go down so easily. And Mayuri continues saying they aren't so small fry then, huh? And that's why I brought you guys, just in case you have to stress any rogue zombie Quincy's and just, you know, have you on deck. Mayuri looks down as the smoke clears and says, well, if that's just a fraction of the Fullbringer's powers, they've caught my attention. And we go back to Candice to see what happens when the smoke clears. And there's a giant tree that has all of a sudden popped up from the middle and has protected GINJO and absorbed most of the electricity. The tree, of course, is from Tsukishima. If you've not played Bleach Brave Souls, it's a special move. You see it a billion times.
Yup.
And it started, when the battle started, he immediately slashed it, raised this gigantic tree that it is today, and GINJO attacks and launches Getsuga at Candice, who's barely able to survive it, and she recognizes it as Ichigo's attack. And GINJO tells her to make sure to thank Ichigo. She was only able to dodge it because she saw it previously. And while all this is going on, we see that there's another person watching from the shadows, and we see it is none other than Narana, who is also alive and watching, and he has been told by Miri to just observe. Just observe what's going on. And we find out that his technique, the underbelly, he tried to use the technique on Mayuri. And this is the technique that worked on Aizen, by the way.
Oh,
he
that's
tried
right.
to use it on Mayuri, but Mayuri just responded and said it's only natural for someone to change their spiritual pressure every second. And so it wouldn't work. And that's how he found himself in this situation.
Yep.
I like that he tried at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like all of the Stern Raiders at least gave it a college try to get out of there. And then like, all right, fuck it. Like, I guess we're stuck. We might as well continue on.
It's Mayuri. You can't really, but you try. You give it a shot.
Yeah. So now we go back to Karakura Town because, of course, we're fighting, so we need some narration from Urahara and Hisagi. And Urahara is continuing to explain the Fullbringer's powers to Hisagi. And this is, I cut all of this out. This is all stuff that we already know. Okay, I'll give you a short version. Basically, their mothers are attacked by Hollow while they're still in the womb, and they survive. And then those Hollow powers basically come out of them. And Urahara pulls down a whiteboard that already has a whole bunch of things written on it about creating the ultimate demonic soul reaper.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell is that?
So Hisagi asks, he's like, what is that? Like, what did I just see? And he erases it because Urahara was embarrassed I didn't have a cool name yet, like Karakura Riser. And so Hisagi is like immediately looking at it. He's like, does that have anything to do with like what happened with Yoruichi? And he thinks back to after the 1,000-Year Blood War. He said that Yoruichi was running around Soul Society asking if anybody saw her battle. And anybody who was foolish enough to say yes, she pummeled them until their memory was gone. Which is Thunder God Yoruichi. You
Yes.
know, we know how.
Oh my God, I wish I would have been there.
Dude, I was cracking the fuck up when I read that.
So funny.
So Yoruichi was able to remember everything she did during that.
Yeah, she just wasn't in control.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Urahara, continuing on, just not mentioning anything. He says that he's actually been aware of Fullbringers for quite some time. And he's like, so don't you think it's odd that if I was aware of him, that someone in the past thousands of years of Soul Reaper history wouldn't have noticed it before me? And he says, except any proof of that has been removed from the archives. Hisagi says, well, it's normally just for Soul Reaper matters, so of course they're not going to keep them in there. And Urahara's like, well, what about the visual department? Hisagi stops and says, then the Fullbringers have a connection with the Tsunayashiro family? And Urahara responds, well, that sounds like a job for a Soul Reaper investigator with a backbone. And he says, heaven forbid, the small chance that he's wrong. He doesn't want to make a guess. You know, he doesn't want to make a quick little say. And Hisagi thinks, full aware that Urahara is probably taking advantage of him here to go and investigate this stuff. But then Urahara says the info you gave about Hikone is actually a great starting point for him. Hisagi asks if he thinks Hollows would be amused to see humans with similar powers as them. And Urahara thinks of the Arrancar that he knows and says, well, there has been, it'll have to be case by case, but there does seem to be a rise of thoughtful Arrancars these days. As we go back to the Rakangai, and the giant tree Tsukushima made is now being fucked up, and we see it thrown as Minnie is here, which is P the power, just so we're keeping track.
Power.
And she is ready to fight as well. So she's part of the crew, and just then we see the tree is caught by none other than Giriko, who's now in his fucking Hulk form. And this is where we get the note from GINJO, where he's like, man, I don't think I ever asked how he died. Like, he sees how strong Giriko is, like, how did he die? And we all know he got one-shotted by Kenpachi. That's a fucking hate to see it. It's also noted here that Minnie, P the power, was estimated to have enough power to take down Kenpachi by herself.
Yeah, when they said that, she had that much raw strength.
Yep. Which is a fucking psych, but okay.
They just said physical strength, not combat ability.
Yeah.
So Giriko and Minnie begin to just trade fucking blows, and GINJO is deflecting arrows from Candice, and GINJO is like, this battle's going to be totally cool, totally chill, and they're basically just going to stall until Tsukushima can find his time to insert himself into one of their paths, and then they will use that to find out what their motive is as well. But just then, GINJO senses a strong presence coming, as though ridiculing the fight itself. Mary gets a radio report of a Garganta opening, and Mary immediately is able to tell that this is not the, quote, plaything of the four great noble houses, but a genuine Arrancar. And we see a white silhouette bolting through Soul Society to the exact location, and it says he is going so fast that he's basically destroying any boulder or tree that they were fighting with into fucking smithereens, when all of a sudden a blue-haired beast stopped dead center of the fight. And it's GRIMMJOW.
That's my boy.
GRIMMJOW is there, and he says, I came here because I felt the presence of something mixed, but it ended up being neither of them. GRIMMJOW then turned to GINJO, who he quickly surmised the strongest of the bunch, and said, you better tell that kid Hikone that I came to finish what that little brat started. And that's the end of chapter 7. It's kind of interesting to note that they talk about the Fullbringer powers, and they're fucking broken. You know, and I feel like anybody would go with the strategy that the Fullbringers have. We'll stall. Tsukushima, all he's got to do is become his friend and we win. Like,
yeah,
it's just fucking game over. Like, anybody that has compassion of any kind.
But I do like when they mentioned Byakuya.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be later. That'll be later with Byakuya. But yeah, exactly. The downfall with Byakuya. And love the shit with Urahara. Basically baiting Hisagi to go check into the Tsunayashiro family. Once again, politics stuff that's being brought up where he's like, yeah, don't you think like someone would have noticed 1,000 years ago?
Yeah,
like,
it's been a
I'm
while
not
now.
the guy who made the original things, you know? And he's like, okay, yeah, that's a good point. Great point.
I like a lot of the dialogue between Mayuri and Candice. Especially, I don't know why I thought it was hilarious. She's like, I'm a gentleman among these people. I would never hurt a woman.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the fuck you would.
Yep. And I think at one point he's even like, you know, I just have so much love in my heart that I would be willing to release those people.
Yeah.
And
I'm like, sure. I just picture him with that grin he makes when he's got like the feral look on.
Yep. such a shithead to the end of time. Just
Fucking
so
hilarious.
bad.
I love him.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote down both of those quotes, so here they are. He says, "I'm known as a prominent gentleman around here, so I would hate to rough up a lady." He says in his introduction, kicking the shit out of his daughter.
Yep.
Then it says, "I am someone who is known to have love running in his veins instead of blood."
Mm-hmm.
And I also said, "My Yuri believes his own shit."
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's fantastic. And then I also put Charlotte makes the grand return, and I love it.
Yeah. And he also mentions in that time where he's having his beef with Candice is like he's actually finished dissecting the Quincy's and all that stuff years ago. Like he's not really interested in you guys anymore. Like he's been there, done that. He said he was kind of interested with like the Stern Ritter, and like he referred to them as the pure-blooded Quincy's.
Yeah.
But like you guys lost a lot of those powers now. So
He's like, you guys are kind of like meh now.
yeah.
If he had gotten them like pre-Eshwallen, he'd probably be a little interested still.
Oh yeah, you would have been way happier. It's like the basically dissecting and figuring out how like this blood can give them special powers and how it returns back. But he's like, yeah, you guys are already fucking like a bum. We are already wasted.
Also, I like the part where when Urahara is explaining like the Fullbringers and stuff like that, he does mention Chad and Orihime.
Yeah.
And them maybe being a little bit different. And Pythes, correct me if I'm wrong, but he says it's because they were exposed to the Hogyoku.
Yeah.
He says so because they asked like, oh well, like how did they get their powers? Because I think it's Hisagi was like, wasn't it because they were close to Hogyoku? He's like, kinda like that's involved. It's just also their origin story was a little bit different, but same origin of the power. You know, like so it's interesting.
It's like they were both attacked by hollows, but like way after they were born. But Hogyoku be like some crazy dumb magic shit.
I mean, Orihime's God.
Oh my god, her powers are so fucking broken.
Chad can just take out people in a building.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Chad's a terrorist, so yeah. So.
Yeah. Who cheats in the world of boxing now?
Well, it's not confirmed.
Yes, it is. Yeah, no real human has a chance against Chad. Let's be honest.
That's true. The man stopped a beam from crushing, I think, who was it, like kids or something?
Yeah, and this was before he had powers.
Yep.
So when Candice is reminiscing on when she was abducted, she says she was taken by a lady named Toru, Tourue, and I was like, who the fuck is that? So she's the lady that captured Cone and brought him to be experimented on in Squad 12, and that's how we get Buff Cone. And I only noted her because her ability is that her titty extends like a whip, and she used it to smack him in the face.
Wait, her what?
The fuck?
Her titty, it extends like a whip or a tentacle and smacks Cone in the face.
All right.
If you would like to Google that, it's there.
I trust you.
Yeah.
It was in the anime, and I wrote Charlotte is here. ! And in order to muddle the waters further, the book calls Charlotte a she.
Oh, that's right. The book does call her a she.
Scandalous.
I do like that we get Dordoni's full name.
Yeah.
Dordoni Alessandro del Socasio.
That's a
Beautiful,
weird.
Jose.
That's a really weird way to say Don Panini.
Yeah, I did write that too. I'm like, we got Don Panini's real name.
There's just some dialogue where like Cerrucci and Dordoni are talking in the background, and it just says, "Meanwhile, a short distance away, Charlotte was posing for mysterious reasons."
I do love that. I just picture her going like this and doing all the like classic poses.
I'm just gonna swap back and forth between he and she for Charlotte.
He and she.
Him, her, she, whatever.
That's the way it was meant to be done, apparently.
I really like that Dordoni comments on Ichigo killing Ginjo.
Yeah. Yep.
He's not a boy anymore.
Because that was one of the things that he was doing when they originally fought. Is remember Dordoni just wanted Ichigo to use his full power, and Ichigo kept trying not to use it over and over again. And it wasn't until he used the Hollow Mask where Dordoni was like, "Okay, good."
He's like, you can't be naive like this anymore, kid. You're in Wakamundo. And he was then naive, and he got his shit rocked by Ukiura.
Yep, true.
Dordoni was right. And, oh yeah, this is a stupid note. I wrote Candice gets cucked by a tree.
Candice's weakness, a tree.
A tree.
I wrote Karakura Riser is canon, and then just how to make the perfect demonic soul reaper. What the fuck is Urahara cooking?
Maybe we'll get it in the Hellverse, or Hell Arc.
Oh yeah, I was looking up who another character was, and one of the recommended articles was just Bounce Invasion. And I was like, oh
Let's go.
And
Bounce Invasion, you say?
Yes. Maybe that could be used in some kind of court trial. Just saying.
Maybe.
If only. It was the great Bount defense of 2023.
That'll go down in history. I hope someone tells Kubo that. And then I had to look it up because they mentioned that a Giriko grows to 5 meters, and I'm like, I can't. I only use freedom units. So he is now 16 feet tall.
Jesus, that's
Okay.
what. Damn.
Yeah, that was what the conversion told me. If somebody knows different, comment it. One last thing, it was Nemu mentioned Candice fighting and now GRIMMJOW showing up, Jose eating good. And that's the end of the notes for that chapter.
All right, chapter 8. We immediately go to Las Noches, and we see Las Noches is has Hannibal, has Nell, has Rudebone, has all the favorite people there, and they are all wondering where the fuck GRIMMJOW went, and they're all debating on if he fucked off to the real world or Soul Society, and why he would do that if he's supposed to be like an animal and basically guard his turf in Hueco Mundo. And Hannibal says that the little kid that invaded also has her worried, more specifically that Zanpakuto that they used. And that's all we get for that short little interaction there. We'll come back to them later. We go to Soul Society now, and Shinji feels this tremendous spiritual pressure arrive and recalls feeling this back in Karakura Town. Momo says that she's contacted the R&D department and they responded to it. That's like, don't fucking worry about it. We're just testing something over there. No biggie. And Shinji immediately is like, that is the biggest load of crock that I've ever heard. And he's like, I'm going to head over there. And then he tells Momo to go ahead and report this to the head captain. LUPPI senses GRIMMJOW and immediately jumps towards the battle zone. He's like, oh yeah, that motherfucker. And the other Arrancar call him out, like saying like, don't go, you're gonna get a shock, and nothing happens. They're like, oh, what the fuck? Like me, and they look over to Miuri and he's like, you know what, I too am interested why that Arrancar is here and wants to know how the Fullbringers and the Quincy's will react to multiple Arrancar in the mix as well. And he actually invites the rest of them, like, hey, if you guys want to go down there too,
It's always an experiment for him.
He's like, be my guest. And Charlotte is like, no, GRIMMJOW is too crude. No, thank you.
Yeah.
And Mary thinks GRIMMJOW was last working with Urahara. And he's like, he's not pulling the strings here, is he? And that's when we go back to the Urahara shop, of course. And we find out here that Hisagi is just a straight up racist. And Urahara asks if he still has contacts with the Arrancar who helped him in the war. And Urahara is like, you know, the Arrancars have thoughts and feelings of their own also, my boy. And he's like, whether or not it's a case of their thousands of souls coming together to make one, or one strong soul taking over the others, that means that there's always a chance for negotiations because there's, you know, so many different opinions and souls in there. And Urahara senses that Hisagi is still basically thinking about Tozen when he mentions this, and tells him that the possibility of saving him or not being the right person for the job is a waste of time. As you were there, you did what you had to do, and just as Hisagi is thinking of what it was about Tozen that he wants to uphold, and basically how it's Tozen's teachings that he truly values, he sees Urahara suddenly holding his cane Zanpakuto looking out into the distance, and he asks Hisagi if he came prepared for Gentei Kaijo. Hisagi explains that, you know, he's under Gentei Kaijo. We already knew that. He entered the real world, and he has under 20% of his power currently. Hisagi attempts to tempt if anybody's outside of the shop, but he can't find anybody, so he doesn't know what Urahara is basically reacting to. And Hisagi asks, like, are they surrounding the shop? And Urahara says, no, something is surrounding Karakura Town. And we go to a certain place in the Serite. We see Tokinada, that Tokinada.
Fucking bitch.
I was about to say.
He's watching the battle happen in the Rukongai and basically makes a phone call using a candle to Hakone. And he explains that his earlier loss in Hueco Mundo was all part of his plan. And he failed perfectly, is what he says, and that he needed the defeat to grow. Hikone basically keeps apologizing to Tokinada, is like telling him, like, I'm so sorry, like, I'm not gonna fail you this time, don't worry about it. And basically it's mentioned that Tokinada, every time he speaks to Hakone, he is speaking in a nice nurturing voice, as of like talking to a little kid, but he's smiling menacingly the whole time as if he's toying with a little small animal,
like Joker.
And it just doesn't come across because it only does voice on the candle, so like he has no idea. And we hear another voice chime in on the candle, telling Tokinada that if you think you're equal to this brat, you haven't even put a shred of thought to it. We find out the voice is that of the Zanpakuto, Iko Mikodomoe. And Hikone immediately like pulls it away, apologizes to Lord Tokinada. And Tokinada's like, no, that's fine. Like, all good. Don't worry about it. It's all part of growing with the Zanpakuto. And it will take time because your Zanpakuto that you're using is just like the one that I have that's passed down to the Tokinada family, or Nanao Zanpakuto, the mirror sword that is also passed down. He says the only person that would even wield it aside from you would be Ichigo or perhaps GINJO.
Ooh,
and speaking of, there's an Espada over there fighting. He's like, You want to go fuck him up? You want to go over there and like see
Go
what's
redeem
up?
yourself.
Yeah. And Hikone's like, oh yeah, like I won't fail you this time. And Tokinada extinguishes the candle basically, and so Tokinada's not thinking of like how lovely Hikone is and what a nice little boy or person he is, and he's like, this is actually going really well for the Zanpakuto that he's using. And he looks to another monitor, and we see it's Karakura Town. He says, oh, so they're making their move on Karakura Town to seize the Jurechi. And he says that this is the only time they can do that with Ichigo being out of town.
Of course.
Yeah. So they're all playing around the goat. That's how it goes. We go to the first company barracks here for a quick little exchange, and Kiraku gets a report from Momo, and he tells Okihiba, who is actually the second lieutenant, correctly this time, and he says like, yo, go relay this information to the squad 2, survey corpse, make sure, and if you need to, you're allowed to use my name, like use my name to get this shit done, like get it going. And he thinks back to Yama and all the shitty decisions that Yama made throughout the years, but he's thinking about like how Yama must have been shouldering the weight of every decision he made every day, and how Yama was the relay between the real world and the Soul Society, and how much stress and pressure that was. And he thinks of how Yama must have felt during ordering the execution of Rukia, and ordering how to treat Orihime as a traitor for going to Wekamundo, etc., etc. So Kiraku's kind of like, fuck, what did I get myself into? Like, there's a lot of fucking pressure. And we go back to the Urahara shop here for the last little bit of chapter 8. And Urahara is informing Hisagi, like, oh, yeah, did I not mention Ichigo's gone? And Hisagi's like, what the fuck? And he's like, yeah, his sisters were gone on a trip. Then his dad got word that they were in trouble. So he grabbed Ichigo and they fucked off. And, as a matter of fact, actually his friends went, and so did Rukia and Renji. They all left.
I like how they write all the main characters off. They're like, well, they're all going on a little trip.
Yeah, and Urahara's like, I was going to go too, but I just like promised to have an interview with you. And Hisagi's like, oh, is it my fault that this is happening? He's like, I feel so bad. And Urahara's like, nah, I'm just fucking around. Like, I was going to stay anyways. Like, I kind of got the feeling that it was a little too convenient for all of them to be called off to go do something. And it's then revealed that basically Urahara's walking out to the patio to go see what's going on, and we see the TV turn on, and it's the voice of a young boy coming through, very quickly revealed to be Yukio, who we all know and love as one of the other Fullbringers. And Urahara's like, or Yukio's like, I'm sure you knew it was me already by the confinement, and Urahara's like, oh yeah, like any other compliments you want to throw my way? Like, of course I knew it was you. And Yukio is like annoyed at Urahara at this point, and Urahara's like, why don't you just tell me like what the reasoning is? Just save us all a bunch of time. And Yuki just goes, I have my reasons. And that's it. That's the end of chapter 8 right there. So he says that the way that Urahara should know it was him was by the way Karakura Town was being basically sealed off from the rest of the world.
Surrounded.
Yeah.
Well, I liked a lot of like the interactions that just happened early on, especially with like Hannibal and Nell talking about, God damn it, GRIMMJOW's gone. Yeah. Where the fuck is this guy?
And I like they're like comparing him to like a fucking watchdog. They're like, dude, isn't he like a panther? Does he have like animal instincts? Isn't he supposed to like stay on his turf? Like, where's he going?
Yeah, like what the hell, man? You're supposed to protect.
Yep. It's like really interesting stuff to basically see how these other characters, it further insinuates that relationship between Nell and GRIMMJOW, where it's like Nell constantly has to go retrieve GRIMMJOW and has to go do this. And
she's his handler. Yeah,
basically. And I like Shinji is getting slowly introduced into the story, where we saw him at the very tail end of volume 1, and now he's getting a little bit more proactive. He's getting in there. He has a little bit more moments later. And then, of course, the Hisagi and Urahara interaction are just continuing through the whole fucking book. Just the whole book.
It's just so good.
Yeah, it's just like, how would you know? You basically need to take one character who is literally a journalist just trying to figure out what's going on, who's going to ask all of the fucking questions, and then Urahara, who has all of the fucking answers for anything you could ever imagine. It's like, you can't ask for a better lore dump.
He won't give you a straight answer, though.
Yeah, true.
I love that aside from Shinji, everybody since GRIMMJOW, and they were like, yeah, that's a squad 12 experiment, and everybody just like, yeah, it seems like
disregards it.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, that's something my Yuri would do. Not even going to question it. Let's just ignore it and go drink tea.
And also to note that it's literally in the Rukongai. They're just like, yeah, fuck it. We're going to have our experiment out here. Don't mind that. This is just normal. Fuck the poor people.
They have a little conversation where Shuhei mentions he wants to protect Tosen's teachings. He doesn't regret killing Tosen, but Tosen had been a teacher and a guide for him. And he's worried that should he change, that he and Tosen's teachings might be changed, and he's worried about that. And then I wrote, fuck that bitch Tokinada number 6.
What deserved the number 6?
Oh, this is when he was talking to Hikone, and they're like, he's fucking with an animal.
Yeah.
I hate Tokinada so much.
And we get an interaction coming up in the next chapter where I just was like getting the interaction with Hikone, and I was like, he's so lovable.
I know.
He's just a kid. Just like, hey, what's up? I'm going over here. Like, just happy to be here.
Optimistic about everything.
Like he should be in sneakers in a cul-de-sac trying to get jawbreakers and shit, but instead he's like, I got to go become a king. Let's fight. I love the description of Shunsui's like the fucking weight of being in the position that Yama was in. This shit's fucking rough, dude.
He did mention at one point that, to be fair, Yama was too serious, and I'm like, that is true.
Yeah, that is 100%.
That is way true. Because, like, you know, a lot of the decisions, he's like, how did he feel about this? He even asked, how did he feel when he had to draw his Zanpakuto on us, like me and Ukitake?
Oh, that's right.
It's like, yeah, every decision he made was shitty. Like, I'm sorry, that just further reiterates for me, Yama made the shittiest decisions ever.
Yeah, I wrote in the book. It just says, old man Yama was way too serious after all. He might have been prepared every day of his life for what was to come. Beneath what had seemed to be callous decisions, there had likely been hundreds of thousands of other choices. Kyoraku had come to represent the very thing those choices had protected. He smiled painfully as his reverence for his mentor continued to grow even deeper.
I don't know why. He chose the shittiest option every time.
So so he knows what to do better, or like what's the better choice.
He saw what Yama did, and he's like, I can do that better.
Yeah, this is why presidents are only on 2 terms. Look how shitty the decisions got from Yama.
How long was Yama in power?
Like 1,000 years,
right?
Yeah.
Almost exactly 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Think about all the fucked up political corruption that's going on. Think about Mayuri doing Dr. Mangala-esque shit, and he's just letting it happen. And then I wrote, Ichigo being out of town is a fantastic reason as to why he can't just solve the problem.
Yep.
It's true. And they mentioned that because he's out of town with his family, he doesn't have any like Soul Reaper gear to come back. Because it's like, how long is it going to take him to come back? It could be like 3 days, like, for him to come back.
And I wrote down, I like to imagine he's just off having a filler arc.
It's another beach episode.
You know what? It is another beach episode. Where's Rangiku? Where's they're off at the beach.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Ichigo gets his vacation finally. And that's the end of those notes. There's some shit I can't wait to talk about next chapter.
All right,
hey, let's
chapter
get into it.
9. This is the last chapter we're going to be covering for this episode, boys. Thank you guys for hanging out. We go to the Rukongai immediately. And GRIMMJOW wastes no time and attacks GINJO and Tsukishima. Tsukishima actually manages to nick GRIMMJOW in this initial interaction, and he inserts him into his past. And GRIMMJOW, just like Byakuya, still attacks. And Tsukishima is like, okay. And he mentions that unlike Byakuya, this seems to be off of pure animal instincts overriding it. As someone who wants to murder him already will continue to want to murder him even though he's inserted in this past. And GINJO launches a Getsuga at GRIMMJOW, and he too manages to barely dodge it. And he's like, are you from the same tribe as Ichigo?
I do like that phrasing.
GINJO is like, fuck, dog. It's either a small world or Ichigo gets the fuck around. Like, what's happening? And Candy and Minnie are watching this fight, and they're like, man, what would Lil Toto do here? Like, what would Lil Toto do in this fight? And the two surmise that basically Tsukishima must have an ability like Pepe. And wonder if Mayuri knew that before sending them in. And Luffy suddenly appears behind them and is like, guys, listen, nobody fuck with the Panther except for me. Like, I'm going to take down GRIMMJOW. And he immediately unleashes his Resurrection and goes strangle Trepadora. And GRIMMJOW senses another Hollow's power and wonders if somebody had followed him from Hueco Mundo. He tries to recall, but as his mantra is survival of the fittest, he does not remember those spiritual pressures of those who he has defeated. And on instinct alone, GRIMMJOW jumps away from GINJO and launches a Sero with all of his strength up at it. And it's mentioned here that even though animal instinct would tell him not to show his like weak side to the enemy, which is GINJO and Tsukishima, he was like so caught back by whatever was happening up there, like he just did it. He's like overrode
he turned his back.
And he says, just then, a power that probably shares the same roots as a Sero shoots down, but it was strong enough to warp the existence of the space itself it cuts through. GRIMMJOW had managed to sway out of the way, and then he recognized the spiritual pressure as none other than LUPPI. And it said that GRIMMJOW looked both exasperated and annoyed. When I
love that. I could
LUPPI.
just see his face being like, oh.
Yeah, and GINJO asked Tsukishima how Tsukushima was able to dodge it so quickly. And he's like, well, now that I answer myself into GRIMMJOW's past, like I know a lot about the Arrancar and the Espada. And he says that what we just witnessed was a Grand Ray Sero coming from up above. And GRIMMJOW launched a regular Sero at LUPPI, and now they're fighting again. GRIMMJOW launched another Sero at him, and LUPPI just smacks it away. He's like, that's a weak Sero, like what the fuck are you doing? But GRIMMJOW used the cover of the Sero to Sonido away, and LUPPI immediately remembers to dying to GRIMMJOW using a similar like attack that he did. And so LUPPI immediately goes into defensive position off of instinct of what happened previously, and then he realizes that GRIMMJOW knew he was going to have that PTSD and used it to get close to him and launched another, this time GRIMMJOW launching it, a Grand Ray Sero at LUPPI, basically enveloping him whole. And GINJO and the Fullbringers discuss the game plan as this whole thing is going on. Like, should we just leave? Like,
I love the discussion. We're like, maybe we should back off, right? It's like, good idea.
It doesn't seem like they have anybody like getting ready to jump us or anything like that. We could probably just go. But then GINJO senses two more people rapidly heading this way. One is Soul Reaper, and one he thinks Ichigo, possibly. And GRIMMJOW, seeing LUPPI has actually survived the Grand Ray Sero, which is a blast that would have normally killed him back in the day. He now notices the stitches all over his body and immediately notes that those aren't scars from battle and are probably something that Xyloparo did himself while he was alive. And he mentions that even Urahara himself did something similar to himself. And he's like, oh, okay, interesting.
He remembers things.
Yeah, and LUPPI is like saying how happy he is that GRIMMJOW is still his same old self, because now it makes him feel as though he's been reborn. And now we move over to a certain place in the Soul Society, and we see Shinji. And he is on his way to where the clusterfuck is happening, and he senses this other spiritual pressure also coming. He is on the way there, and I thought this was interesting. I wrote this down very specifically. He is thinking of his previous battle with GRIMMJOW, and he says that he will probably be fine if he just puts his hollow mask back on.
Thank you.
So all I gotta say is clearly he could have used it.
He could have used it at any point against the Quincy's.
This is directed specifically to Kage. I hope you fucking watch this. You bitch have told me for years, oh, they banned it in the Soul Society. They banned it in the Soul Society. And here's Shinji, first sign of GRIMMJOW in the Soul Society. I'll just rip on the hollow mask. Don't worry about it. This is just be like good old times.
I'm going to come to Kage's defense. It was widely spread on forums that Yama had banned the hollow mask, but it was never said anywhere canon, and people just took that as word of God.
Well, I mean, Yama's gone, so...
Yeah,
and
Shinji, first sign, he said it over there, I'm just going to whip on the hollow mask. I should be able to take these guys off, no problem.
Toss it on, play the old school music with the super cool intro.
The jazz.
With the jazz, yeah.
The best entrance.
Bastards. As Shinji's doing this on his way there, he senses that other spiritual pressure, and then he turns around to run into Hikone, who is on his way to the battle as well. And he talks to Hikone, and he's like, hey, like, so, like, what's up? Like, who are you? Like, what's your name? And Hikone is just, like, answering each one. Just like, hey, I'm Hikone.
So
like,
casual about it, too.
Yeah. And so happy. And each time that he responds, Shinji's, like, thinking, what the fuck is this kid saying? Like, what is he saying? And he's like, yeah, I'm Lord Tokinada's retainer. I'm going to be King of Wekamundo. Then I'm going to be the Rayo. And each time he answers, Shinji is like, this kid's not normal. Like what is happening here? He goes like, what have I gotten myself into? He's like, this is clearly the eye of the storm, and this isn't any good to be here. And Shinji asks, like, are you a boy? Are you a girl? And he's like, actually, I don't have any reproductive parts. And he says that Tokinada said I didn't need it because I'm both the beginning and the end. So what's the point? And Shinji notes that he is full on sprinting and moving at top speed to get to the place he's going. And Hikone just looks like he's out for a jog, just having a good time, just not breaking his sweat or anything like that. And both of them continue going to this location where everything's going down. And Shinji's just like, how the hell am I going to deal with the situation when I get there? Like, this is so fucked up.
I love how he says, and I think the quote is, how do I always draw the short end of the stick?
Yeah. Shinji's just like, fuck this. Like, this fucking sucks. He fought the first time, like, oh, it's just GRIMMJOW. I'll go over there. And he's like, what is happening? Who is this kid? And he's even like, you have like a Soul Reaper uniform on, but you're not a Soul Reaper. It's just like, garb that Tokinada gave me. You know, Tokinada's retainer. It's like, jeez.
I love that, like, the whole conversation is just Shinji getting more and more exasperated by anything Hikone says.
Yeah, but he's I think they describe it as he gets a chill on his spine the minute he was like, oh, I'm supposed to be the Rayo.
Lovely. Yes, we go back to the Rukon guy, and LUPPI is thinking of how when he was revived, he had this thirst. And at first he thought the thirst would kind of disappear by him killing Hitsugaya. But then when he had the opportunity to fight Hitsugaya, he was already zombified, so he felt nothing. Then he saw Rangiku, and it's mentioned that he once thought Rangiku had a kicking body. And even though his interest didn't change, he felt nothing. She was already zombified as well. He didn't have anything. And he was left thinking day to day, like, what is the meaning of my life? Like, what is there to do if I feel this way? And it wasn't until GRIMMJOW reappeared in front of him that all the thirst disappeared. And instead, he felt dread and hatred for GRIMMJOW and a joy for finding a new thing to destroy. LUPPI begins to spin his tentacles around and launches arrows from each tentacle. And it says that he starts to steal GRIMMJOW's technique of using his own blood to strengthen each arrow. And then GRIMMJOW says, grind Pantera. And we cut away from that to Weko Mundo. Here we see Hallible and Nell, and they are on their way to the Soul Society. Hallible is going to go negotiate with them over something, and Nell is to retrieve GRIMMJOW while she's doing that. Hallible thinks that the Soul Reaper kid, and comments that the kid may become a bigger problem than even Yuha have not dealt with. And Lil Toto and Giselle are still watching this as it's happening, and they're kind of figuring out, should we go with them? Where are they going? Are they in the real world? Are they going to the Soul Society? Like, what's happening? And they decide basically that they're going to wait, they're going to bide their time, and then they'll let loose and find a way to reconnect with Candy and Minnie. The last part of chapter 9 that we're going to touch on, we go to the first company barracks. We see Kiraku here, and he's headed out to the Gilded Seal Aristocrat Assembly to dig around a bit more. And Kiraku begins to reminisce about Ukitake, and he's saying that Ukitake was always more of a people person than him, and that actually him, Tokinada, and Kiraku all graduated from the same class, and that Tokinada never stood out. He never got scolded by Yama. He never got a good grades or anything like that. He was basically like a shadow. And he says that even after the incident, which is Tokinada killing his wife, Ukitake still believed that Tokinada would eventually confront the darkness in his heart and turn around. And at this point, he's kind of reminiscing of if that's true, if Ukitake really had that in him. And Okihiba returns and says that something has surrounded Karakura Town. And at this time, Kiraku's like, what the fuck? And
he's like, shit's hitting the fan.
Yep. And so he's thinking, of course, classic reaction, which if you've known anything from this whole novel, he's like, fuck, Tokinada may have gotten the jump on us. It's like immediately it's Tokinada's fault. Like, which we kind of know it's not, right? Because Tokinada's watching the surveillance cameras and he's like, oh, they're making a move. Like, so some other entity making a move here.
Is it not Tokinada's fault, Sam?
No, we never blame Tokinada. He's a sweet angel.
He's just a bystander.
Yeah,
he never does anything wrong.
He would never do anything wrong, ever.
He was annulled. He was never found guilty. Okay, so I don't know why we're slinging that around. Was OJ guilty?
No, he was not. He was not found guilty.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you.
Later on, he was about something else.
Tokinada's going to release a book. I didn't do it, but had I done it or whatever.
Yeah.
Had I murdered my wife and my associate, this is how I would have done it.
I hate how good the comparison is. I was like, all right, we're just going to go with this. Oh, no, wait, this actually works. Hold on. Sam's onto something.
Yeah. So Tokinada has not done anything. Let me recount what he's done so far. He has won. A bunch of assassins tried to kill him, and he protected himself.
That he hired himself.
Yeah. He protected himself.
Allegedly,
and
yeah. Sorry.
It was sadly after they murdered his family. He tried so hard to stop that, and it was only after they murdered his family, and then now he's got to take on the burden of the Tsunayashiro family, the complete burden.
Poor guy.
He's taken in a young kid with no private parts and completely raising this kid up, okay? And he gets him health care, make sure he gets healed all the time. He has a fatherly bond with him. He's got his cell phone for him, basically.
A pet.
Yeah. I mean, no, Jose, no, he don't got pet. He don't got a pet.
Iko Miko Domoe?
No.
Okay, no pet.
We don't. That's not in the official biography. You don't know pet.
That is racist, Jose. How dare you?
Thank you. Yeah, another Hisagi sitting right next to me over here. This fucking guy. So Tokinada on the books has not done anything illegal. That's all I can say.
Sam, you've been to Jose's house, right? Does he have like a pointy? Does he have a pointy hood hanging up in a closet somewhere?
I did see one actually.
Whoa.
You know what? To further that on to that, I saw an electric guitar. I saw a motorcycle. I saw all these things. It's looking real Hisagi for this guy over here.
69's just a cool number, dude.
So listen, free my boy Tokinada is all I gotta say. So he's not done anything.
You should get that shirt made into a shirt. Free Tokinada.
Tokinada did nothing wrong. All right.
If the sword sheath fits, you must acquit. I'm just saying.
Damn.
That's true. That's true.
Oh, hold on. It didn't fit, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, actually, Tokinada's Zanpakuto was taken from him. He was protecting himself valiantly.
Yeah, and he had to wield the family heirloom sword to protect himself. Like, a thing that's passed down from generation to generation, which is truly a tragedy.
As he would tell you, they don't tend to like people that they're not grown to. He had to fight without magic powers.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly a tragedy, and I think the people out here that are clowning on a humble man such as Tokinada, they don't really know him, And who are we?
It's so sad to judge him.
Are any of us truly a better judge of character than Ukitake himself?
What a great judge of character. Cayenne could definitely take that hollow by himself.
I was trying not to laugh, damn it.
Cayenne totally had that fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
should have won.
I mean, he honestly should have won. So Cayenne fucking fumbled the bag. I don't know what he was doing.
The
there.
refs were not on his side.
I mean, listen, if I was the Four Noble Houses, I too would have kicked the Shiba family out after seeing that. Like, he lost to a rando. Like, sorry, Cayenne, you're out.
No, Rukia, don't get involved. I'm also not going to get involved.
Yeah, it was like, I could probably release my spiritual pressure and crush this hollow, but nobody get involved, please.
You don't understand. I have gift baskets of candy to send to Toshiro later.
So, anything in Chapter 9 that I missed that you guys want to discuss on before that's it?
So at one point, Tsukishima just calls GRIMMJOW mid.
We love that.
That's disrespect. He gonna die.
Well, he already did. He's going to die again.
He's gonna get reborn.
Candice and Maneus just called Lil Toto a strategist, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. At one point, Shinji perfectly described the Tsunayashiro family. He said, the four great noble houses hold absolute power. Not all of them are open-hearted like Yoruichi or loyal like Byakuya. Among them, the Tsunayashiro family was like all the negative aspects rolled into one. And I was like, what the fuck? Toshin's backstory is public knowledge.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Because like, even Urahara, which I guess not surprised that Urahara knew what it was. But
Batman always knows what's up.
Almost everybody knows of this backstory. Like, it must be very famous.
That's something you think would, like, he would only tell to those closest to him, or if he's trying to get them to work for him for Aizen. But they're just like, yeah, no, this is what happened. Fuck Tokinada.
I mean, who do you think is the gossip queen that got that around? So it has to be someone close to Tozen.
Tokinada.
Yeah, I was gonna say Tokinada.
Tokinada was bragging the other. So yeah, this fucking poor ass blind kid came up to me the other day. I fucking crushed his throat. That bitch
stomped on him.
He would. Wait, sorry, no, he wouldn't. Tokinada's innocent.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Thank
Allegedly.
you. Correct the record.
Yeah.
Allegedly. This was all in his book.
Allegedly, though. This was allegedly in his book.
If that had happened, he would have done that and crushed his throat.
Yeah.
Well, since Jose and I read up to chapter 10, I need to make sure that this passage I want to read is not chapter 10 and therefore 9 instead.
Jose, did you finish chapter 10?
No, I got like 7 or 8 pages into it.
Oh, okay.
I was reading it at work when Sam sent that. I'm like, 9 it is.
Okay. Well,
I had to get back to work.
Well, I just checked. It is in chapter 9, but Sam, you did a good job summarizing Luppi's feelings.
Oh, thank you.
Which I really like that. I kind of fucking vibe with him more.
Yeah, it is interesting, but it's still like from an evil point of view. He's like,
it really is.
I didn't have anything I wanted to fuck up. And it's like, he starts questioning himself. Like, I felt really empty and really sad. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And then GRIMMJOW appeared.
He's like,
and then
perfect.
It was all back to me, baby. My self-confidence
It's the
came
mojo.
back.
It came back.
Yeah.
Like that shit kind of hit hard, because I think at one point all of us have felt listless and like we just lose all our motivation.
Not me. Can't relate. I'm not a bitch.
Okay, fine. I guess
Survival of the fittest.
I guess that's me with all of the mental problems. OCD sucks.
Hey man, I know a doctor / scientist who might be able to give you some drugs to help you out with that.
Do you think he can take, like, okay, so I have this magic sword, right, with like a ghost in it. Do you think he can give that ghost a sex change?
Yeah,
most definitely. You know, there are 2 customers, or maybe 1.
I mean, listen, get a sex change, and then if you want an electric guitar that also works as a sheath, I got a guy for you.
Oh, really? Okay, can you give me a number?
Yeah, no problem.
He's got a candy shop too.
Yep, exquisite candy.
Now, I only trust people who are trusted by the nicest man in the world, Tokinada. Do you think he would recommend them?
Yeah, I think so.
100%.
I think so in a heartbeat. I mean, how could you not?
I mean, the man, he does his job so well. He just keeps an eye on everything.
Absolutely. And dude, there are some fucking killer notes that I cannot talk about because it's next chapter. Know that Hisagi, just some shit goes down. It's so fucking funny.
Hell yeah.
Damn.
So
okay.
it's funny, really quick. I remember playing through Camp for Your World in Bleach Brave Souls, and not the best representation. If you want to get the story, don't do it through Bleach Brave Souls. But that being said, I know who shows up to the Urahara shop because of fucking Bleach Brave Souls. And in my mind, that happened so quick. Like, I'm like, oh, that should be boom. We are like halfway through this fucking banger second novel. In my head, I'm like, that's a first noveler. Like right there. That's like boom. Because I remember and I know who shows up and what happens. It's Bleach Brave Souls. Like, it's fucking Bleach Brave Souls. And I'm like, all right, well, I had no idea there was this much shit that's going on beforehand.
Well, we're halfway through book 2 and we got all of book 3. So, like, you have to get halfway through the series to get to that part.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I too am excited because I know a little bit. It's a little interesting, but I don't know the deets. Like, one of the most interesting things to come out of Volume 2 for me was obviously playing Bleach Brave Souls. I know of Hikone. Totally know Hikone. Seen the abilities. Know the Zanpakuto. Did not know some of the finer points of the Zanpakuto, like it moving itself and things like that. Did not know that it could speak. Did not know that was happening. And also, I did not really know the personality of Hikone, and I like Hikone.
Yeah, I really like Hikone too.
How could you hate
happy-go-lucky kid?
He's a good boy, kind of. He's a good.
I mean, look at him on the cover. Look how innocent he looks.
He's just got maybe some blood or something coming off the side of his head, but that's okay.
He's got Why does he have a chain? Why did Tokinada put a chain on him?
No, maybe that's just how the sword came. Maybe that's the sword's like sheath. That's how it works.
Why fucking Tokinada? God damn it, Tokinada. I also want to point out, like, the poster you get on the inside is just Shinji looking cool.
Is that what that is?
It's also Hikone just hanging out, vibing.
Yeah, it's the.
Hey, so let me tell you really quick the struggle. Did you order yours off of Barnes & Noble?
Yes, I did.
Did yours have a security tag on the inside, dog?
No.
Oh my lord. Okay.
Did yours?
Yeah. So for those who maybe are new here, I worked at Barnes & Noble for 7 years. Long time. I worked at Barnes & Noble. And let me give you a little bit of a spoiler that maybe will make you not want to order from Barnes & Noble. When you order from Barnes & Noble, it does not necessarily mean it's going to come from a warehouse. They implemented this new thing now. It was new when I was leaving, like fucking 3 years ago. If you order online, those orders will actually go to stores, and the stores will pull the books off of the shelves. So obviously, if it was a perfect world, that's not that big of a problem. No biggie. But because it's not a perfect world, a lot of times they're pulling like fucking bent ass books off the shelves and stuff like that. And it's up to the bookseller to be like, yeah, that's fine. And in my store, multiple times the books were real fucked up, and it was like, we're just going to send it just to get it done, and then they can send it back if they don't want it. Part of that is because these books are in stores, they have security tags. So when I worked there, they were in the middle of phasing. There's 2 types of security tags. One is they're each little squares, and they put them somewhere in the book, totally random. They hide them somewhere. One of them has black markings on the outside. It looks like a barcode almost. If you see that one, return your book, because that one is meant to rip whatever page it is on. It's not meant to come off. It is meant to full on destroy whatever it is on. And that is because it's like a high theft item. A lot of times those are meant to go on plastic wrap, but obviously it doesn't work because people take the plastic off. So you'll get an asshole that'll just slap it on a page somewhere, and then you're fucked. They try to make it non-intrusive, but sometimes what they'll do is they'll put on the poster, which is what made me think of this.
That's the worst.
Sometimes you'll get a book and the poster will be ripped out because it'll be on the shelf already. There's a second security tag, which was the one that was in my book, thank God. It's all white, no markings on the outside. Those are meant to peel off. So
it's the little one that goes on the side, right?
Yeah, so you can peel it off. You just get under it and it comes right off. And it's meant to not destroy anything. It's meant to be harmless security tag. They try to hide those usually, so that way, they can't find them very easily. But be cautious, because, like I said, if you order off Barnes & Noble, which Can't Fear in World Volume 2, the whole point of this rant, is not being printed right now. It's fucking, you cannot get it on Amazon. It's like fucking $30.
Yeah, it's so expensive.
The only place that we could find it was Barnes & Noble, and that's because, quite literally, they're pulling from stores. So it's like, it's just stores that still had Volume 2 on the shelves. They're probably where we both got them from. So
they got here pretty fast, though.
Yeah, and it's risky because you could get a copy and like it could be missing the poster. It could have a security tag on there. So I always try to avoid ordering from Barnes & Noble. But in this case, it worked out really well, and it was literally the only place that we could get it at retail price. Then you got to pay fucking shipping, though, so we got fucked anyways. Mine was like $30.
Yeah, I think mine was, around 30 or 24.
Yep. And that's like with tax and all that shit.
I am shocked that, Sam, you worked there for so long. I'm shocked you didn't already have all of them.
There was a time where I saw them coming in.
We had literally talked about it multiple times when I think I had mentioned, I'm like, Can't Fear Your Own World, and Sam's like, oh, we have it in the store. Do you want to buy it? And I was
Yep.
like, nah, I'll get it some other time.
Yep. Never did it. I should have, but never did it.
You really, really should have, man.
Yeah, I fucked up.
I'm gonna check the back. How much? Okay, so this would have cost you $20, not counting shipping.
$17.99 is what ours
Yeah.
is listed for.
Yes, mine, but I always round up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so $17.99. After shipping and taxes, because you have to pay for shipping on Barnes & Noble because it's a fucking scam, $30.
Yep. That's good. We know part 3 is on Amazon.
Yeah, part 3 is readily available everywhere. So part 2, not so much. I don't know why that is. Part 1 is available everywhere also.
Mhm.
Part 2, no.
I imagine it's also expensive, not just because out of print, but the anime just ended. People got to get on that bandwagon.
And I wonder if this is also not being printed as much because it's bigger than the other ones, where this probably costs more for them to print.
Is 3 as big as this one, Pythes?
It's a little smaller,
A little bit.
just a little bit. It's like a couple chapters smaller. By the way, these are beefy chapters in this book, man.
They really
Yeah.
are. So for a while starting, I was like, we were going to try, our goal was to go to chapter 10. And I was like, that's kind of sick. If like this one is like, let's say there's 20 chapters in this book. I was like, there's going to be some short chapters. Like that's what I'm about. And then I started reading. I was like, oh, it picks up from chapter 6. Right. They're going to be long ass chapters again.
These feel longer than book
They
one.
feel like I was saying,
There's
they're
just a lot of
really
info.
long. And like the fact that so much of it was that fight, I was like, dude, you think that fight started at the beginning of this novel? It went all the way through. It was crazy.
Yep.
Hey, you guys should wait till chapter 11.
Then we'll be zooming, baby.
In fact, don't read anything. Go to chapter 11. Just read the first word.
Chapter 11, read the first word.
This is mostly for
What page
Jose.
is that one on?
There's chapter 10.
I love it.
Yep. That's just for you. That's just for you, Jose.
Let's go.
The word was destruction, in case
Yep.
anybody wants to know. So, any last bits we want to talk about the novel? Anything we missed? What do you guys think of it as a whole? Well, I guess we're only halfway through. So, what did you guys think?
I like it so far. It's just, I don't know, one big battle.
Yeah. I feel like I was kind of thinking the other day that I was thinking, what if they adapted this into an anime? Is what I was thinking. Like, because people have said for a long time, adapt Can't Fear Your World, adapt Can't Fear Your World. And I was like, you think about it, the first novel, I don't think had any fights. It had none. Anything that was on screen was already done by the time we got there. Like Tokinada fighting the assassins, that was done. Them invading to get the sword, that was done. We didn't see any of that shit. So the whole first novel was nothing. And then this one is all a one fight over and over again. But it cuts away. Like at every point the fight starts, cuts. Fight starts, cuts. I'm like, man, I wonder if people would lose their mind if they adapted it like exactly how it is.
They probably give it the same treatment as 1,000-Year Blood War.
Move some pieces around.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that is the exact format of like most of the Wakamundo arc.
Yeah,
Ichigo-
you're right.
Ichigo is fighting GRIMMJOW, then we cut back to Xyloporo, then we cut back to Orihime, then we cut back to Ichigo. They could do it.
It's a struggle. They could do it. How do you think people would do it the first volume where it's just literally all like hanging out, having a good time?
Honestly, that could just be like an episode or two. Just
Yeah,
talking.
I like that. It'd be the setup.
I mean, we had the Quincy's fighting some Arrancar. There's some action you could spice in there.
They can beef it up a little bit.
They could cut back to a lot of that stuff, like the Tokinada bits. They could cut back to that later as like flashbacks and kind of spice them in to give Tokinada some more time and get further. Because I think, Bleach people, they need a little bit of action to kick it off and get it going.
What if they made this a full-length movie instead?
There's not enough time.
I don't know, because that's another thing also where it's like, if you think about it in terms of a movie, where would they stop at the end of this fight, I guess?
I can't spoil it, but it's so cool.
I will get there soon.
I'm so excited.
It could be anything.
Hey, Sam, maybe a thing happens that'll get you really fucking crazy hype.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
oh.
All right. Well, I think that's it then. Do we want to touch? I know we joked on it a little bit, and if you've been living under a rock, the Bount defense that happened in the fucking trial, dude, that shit was so funny. That happened.
I thought Twitter was lying. I was like, there's no way.
I also thought Twitter was lying.
That shit had me. So if you guys missed it, in a like legal proceeding, a rapper's on trial right now, and his defense brought up the Bount arc, and it was something along the lines of, this lady went up and she was like, Your Honor, this reminds me a lot of an anime called Bleach, and in Bleach there was the Bount arc, and she knew the exact episode it started.
Yep.
Started on this episode, and it featured these vampires, and after the finale, after the episode ends, we never see these vampires again. They are not relevant to the story. They never return. We are like that. We are not relevant to the story. We should not be here. I was like, dude, that is so funny. And the memes and stuff that have been coming from it are incredible.
Give that woman a raise.
And I saw so many things. It was like the rapper when his defense attorney brings up the bounce arc, and he's just like, fuck. Like, come on.
He's like, wrong arc.
Yeah. And I forget, didn't he get put in jail? Is that the outcome, or is the trial still ongoing?
I don't know if the outcome has been out yet, but I would have loved to have been the prosecution where it's like, I got this, Your Honor. Actually, if you'd watched the rest of the Bleach anime, you would see that Jinkarya actually returns in a later episode and is very relevant. There's a moment where Ichigo is seeing all of his previous victories and battles that he's had to go to, and each one is kind of teaching him a life lesson. And you see Jinkarya himself appear in that moment as well and give him parting words of advice and how he doesn't want to end up like him. And then to add on to that, Your Honor, the mod souls that were introduced in the Bound arc are all over the canon episodes. So her excuse of not being relevant into the canon episodes is wrong. It's just completely wrong, Your Honor. I rest my case.
And then they would bring up, hey, how come your name is Ad Bounce 420?
I don't think that's relevant to the case, Your Honor, but
hold on, Sam. We got to conduct an investigation on you right now. Pull up Twitter. It says you streamed BBS.
You have to go down really far for that, Your Honor. I don't know who's looking at that because that's way down there. That's the old me.
You just hear, we're going to take a recess. I have to watch all of Bleach to understand what's going on. I'll be back.
So you guys have me lost.
They bang the gavel and they say order in the court and they go, Mr. Sam, why are you sitting on a giant fish?
Well, Your Honor, this is also a Bound reference. If you watch the arc, it's pretty good.
Why are you wearing a wig and have like red contacts in? Okay, listen.
It's like I feel like this is starting to be a lot of personal attacks, Your Honor. I don't understand where these are coming from. But I mean, shame on me for having red contacts with a red jacket. Like, it's just a cool look.
It's my look.
Yeah.
And then you and that lady lock eyes because she clearly doesn't like the bounce, and you just both draw swords.
Yeah.
Just turns into a Bleach battle, and then philosophy gets tossed around.
And then they're sitting in the court, and all they hear is just swords clashing outside, and then they hear Bankai mustard gas.
Oh no! Everyone is just gone.
It's the instant win every time, baby, especially indoors.
Mr. Sam, where is the defense attorney? She went to Soul Society. She went where? She went to the Soul Society.
She actually learned the error of her ways, and she said she was going to go rewatch the Mount arc right now. So I think she bounced out.
She's buying a signed Jinkarya trading card right now.
Yeah, so she says she had to leave this instant to go get it.
It was pretty important.
Which I personally think is disrespectful, but that was her.
That was disrespectful. Your Honor, would you like a giant fish to sit on?
Because it may not look comfy, but it really is. It's all the hype right now.
And then the judge is Kari, and he goes, "Guilty."
Yeah.
Hits you with
done.
Bring in the next witness, and it's what's his name? The dude with the mohawk.
Koga.
Koga, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, Koga.
For a second, I was like, why the fuck are they calling him Quincy?
That's what I thought you were going. I was like, Jose, where are we going?
Sorry.
Did he have a
Mugarama.
mohawk? Did he have a
Yeah,
mohawk?
Koga had one.
Yeah, he had the red one.
No,
wait, was it red?
Because I think Koga in present time had a mohawk, but in the olden times he had the ponytail.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That's where I'm getting confused at.
Are we all thinking of Baz B?
No. Koga had a mohawk.
So you're saying that Baz B stole Koga's look?
I mean, listen, we know a lot of people stole the look from the Mount, straight up.
Karia looks like an OC I made at some point. It just feels like it.
But I mean, you think of the time that was created, that would have been peak, like, OC Bleach, that you would have fit right in.
Stall for time. I have to look up what Koga looks like.
I think Jose's doing that. Jose, you looking up Koga right now?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he does have a mohawk.
Yep.
Okay. I was thinking like bald head mohawk. No, he has like hair styled in mohawk. That's a good look. It's better than the reverse mohawk. Okay, so I'm scrolling down on the page, and then it just says quick facts: leader Jinkarya, final villain Yuha. What the fuck?
That's true, because as you would know if you watch the Mount arc, Koga actually survives. Koga and Ron Tao both survive, and they leave together.
And they are going. and they are going to bring Karya back so he can be the one true savior and defeat Yuha.
Yep. Facts.
All thanks to their great friend Omaida once they put Chad where he belongs as a Soul King.
A Soul King.
Well, I'm not going to let this die.
It all comes back together.
Comes back with using the spiral energy. You forgot about that.
All right, let's call it, boys. That's it. No more. No more. We got too far off into the red. Thank you guys for hanging out and watching Bleach Boys. We will be back. So I think we're gonna take another little break. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. Is what I'm gonna call for this. That way we are a little under halfway done with this, just so you guys have a visual representation. We'll be back with the rest of this. So it will be a long boy episode when we come back. We'll get that done, and we'll get back to you guys then.
So we'll be back on Christmas Eve then, technically.
Wow, a little Christmas present for your stocking, straight from Bleach Boys. We'll be back with the rest of Can't Fear in World Volume 2 Christmas Eve. In between then, we will have a little special episode. We already have a good idea that we were supposed to do last week, but just my schedule didn't work out. So we will see you guys then. We hope you guys enjoy. Of course, let us know your thoughts on Can't Fear in World Volume 2. Are you reading along? What do you think of it so far? Is GRIMMJOW should not be in the novel at all? Let us know in the comments down below.
Whoa.
And then if you liked it, of course, like and subscribe the video. We will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.